I'm Toni Preckwinkle, chair of the Cook County Democratic Party. And this is The 80, our podcast about the party, its leaders, and its candidates. We're beginning the podcast by interviewing our elected Democratic committee people to discuss their backgrounds and thoughts about the history and future of our party. Today, I'm excited to welcome Alderman and committee person, Chris Taliaferro of the 29th Ward. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, President Preckwinkle, and thank you for having me here. I certainly appreciate it.
All right, Chris, let's tell folks, first of all, where the 29th Ward is.
Well, we are located on the west side of Chicago and northwest side. And in fact, we are the far west, I was about to say district, but we are the far west ward. We connect with Oak Park to our west and to our south, Cicero. And as you go northwest in our ward, we connect with Elmwood Park and then the 38th Ward to the north.
All right, so you're northwest, the city of Chicago, but abutting many of our suburbs, all right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. And Roosevelt's my south boundary, and Belmont, a couple of blocks north of Belmont, would be my north boundary.
Okay. All right, now, having established where we are in the 29th Ward, help us out. How did you get into politics? In particular, how did you come to be alderman and committeeman?
You know, it's very interesting. I was serving as a Chicago police officer, and I told my wife, and my wife and I actually had said for over 20 years that we wanted to go and retire back in our small town of Smithfield, Virginia, where you can still hear crickets at night. But as I was assigned to the 25th district, my last 3 years as a police officer in serving 22, I got more involved in community. I got more involved in what's going on the west side of Chicago. And I just felt I could make a difference. I truly thought our leadership, or the current leadership at the time, my predecessor, I think she was doing a good job. But I just believed I could do it a little bit better. And so I went to a meeting, and I'll be very brief with this. I went to a meeting one night because I was assigned there as a sergeant on the police department at the time. And there were so many people in there that were angry. The voices were loud, and this was in a church. The voices were loud, and they were saying, "We will never, ever, ever reelect you." So I drove home that night at the end of my tour. It was about midnight, and I woke my wife up and I said, "Hey, I'm running for office." And she said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to run for alderman." And that was the premise of how I got started.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you served for more than 2 decades in the Chicago Police Department. You know, I think that's an interesting path to elective office, not the usual path. Tell us a little bit about your service.
You know, I prior to that, I graduated high school in '84, and I grew up wanting to be a cowboy. But I found that there were no cowboys in Virginia, so I joined the Marines, and I spent the next almost 10 years in the Marine Corps. And I was actually, my last duty station was Chicago. That's how I ended up here, and I decided to get out simply because they were sending me to Cuba. I had just left Cuba, and they said that my wife couldn't go. I was a newlywed at the time, and I didn't want to go to Cuba without my wife. So I got out and joined the sheriff's department for a brief year. And then with the Chicago Police Department, I was fortunate on the Chicago Police Department to do things that I loved. I worked in district law enforcement, and for several years I taught marksmanship. But I think I really found my niche as an investigator with the Internal Affairs Division. I love doing the job because I love police accountability. I think that those that purposely do wrong should be held accountable.
You know, we have some real challenges in the African-American community recruiting people to be police officers. And one of the big issues, of course, is police accountability. So tell us a little bit more about that.
You know, when I tested, and I'm going back to, I believe it was in 91 when I first tested to become a police officer. There were 44,000 police officers, 44,000 candidates that took the test. And so it was 3 years before I finally was hired. And now I think, for different reasons, we're only getting 2,000 to 3,000 people that are that are testing or wanting to become police officers. The profession is losing its luster. And I think that's because of several reasons. And it's not just public outcry about accountability. It's just police officers are afraid of lawsuits, and they're afraid of making a misstep. When I was a young police officer, there wasn't the cell phones, or there were all the cameras everywhere. And not that you tried to do any wrong anyway. I mean, you just tried to do things right. But now, even in trying to do things right, a lot of police officers are afraid that they're going to be the next video, and they're going to be the next viral sensation on social media. So folks are choosing different paths, career paths, and they're leaving the police job up to those that are extremely brave.
All right. Well, let me ask. After this experience in the police department, which I'm sure informed your public service,
Mhm.
what are your goals, both as an alderman and as a member of the Cook County Democratic Party?
Well, I think as alderman, I want to put forth, and I serve as chairman of the Committee on Public Safety. I think it's to put forth the best fire department and police department we can for this city. Whether that's ushering in police reform by way of consent decree, or by way of having a civilian police commission. I think it's my responsibility as alderman and chairman of that committee to put forth best police department that we can for our city and for the residents of this city. And I think as a party member, as 29th Ward Democratic Committee person, I think it's important for me to help raise leaders and develop young progressive leaders, young progressive Democrats that's going to focus and move this party in a new approach and in a new way of governing and a new way of leadership. So I look forward to that task in both capacities.
All right. So you're chair of public safety. Let's explore that just a little bit. Have you taken a position on any of the police reform proposals that are circulating?
I have, in at first we had our GAPA ordinance, which is the Grassroots Alliance for Police Accountability, then the CPEC ordinance, which was the Police Accountability Police Commission. I initially, and I won't tell you which one I'm supporting for obvious reasons. I do want to at least I want to be able to present a impartial
Right.
approach to it as chairman.
As chair, right.
And so I did take my name off of the GAPA ordinance. But right now we're in a unique position where they have come together in unity and presented an ordinance before my committee, or that will be before my committee, unified in their purpose, and that's to bring forth police accountability. The mayor is expected to introduce a substitute ordinance as well with regard to police accountability. And so at this point, because I have not read what the mayor is going to release, I have not taken a stance on which one I will support when it comes to vote.
Okay, but your role will be pivotal as chair of the committee. So
yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. You said in the second part of your answer to my last question, you said that you hope to nurture and support young people in the party. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that with us?
Well, I think as a party, I've somewhat been following politics in a way that from a young generation and what's going on with our younger generation, because as you can tell, Madam President, they are getting very involved in civics now. And so I look at Speaker Welch, or the party chair, Robin Kelly, and Kim Foxx, and Juliana Stratton, and Melissa Urban, and the list just goes on of young folks that are stepping up to the plate to lead. And I think our party, and what I would hope to participate in, is our party moving to a more systematic approach where we are including and raising young leaders. I'll say this, and very briefly, because I know time may be limited. On the other side, comparatively, I think what the other major party doing is centralizing around one central figure. Even though he's overstayed his time in the White House, that party has gathered around him. And although we may disagree with his policies and politics, there's a cult-like following like we've never seen before. And I think in order for us to make that ineffective, in order for us to somehow nullify what they're doing as a party, and that's centralizing around one figure, we have to raise strong young leaders that are willing to walk the streets, talk in the streets for the Democratic Party. So I think that's one of the central focuses and central reason why I want to support young leaders. I've always said of myself, I'm 55 years old now, which is not old. But I've always said I would
Watch what you say.
Yeah, no. I would like to raise a young leader to sit in this chair that I'm sitting in, because at some point I know that it's going to take someone young to go out and have more strength and more endurance than I do. And so I look forward. And I did have a mentor, but unfortunately, he passed away on New Year's Eve at the young age of, I believe, 33 or 30.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
My condolences to you.
Yeah, thank you.
My condolences to you.
He had run his first election, and I think that's how I got involved. When he called me. He didn't win his state rep election, and he called me afterwards and say, "I need mentorship because I'm very passionate about wanting to serve the public, and no one is offered to mentor, and I offered to mentor him." He had a heart attack on right after Christmas.
Oh, well, again, our condolences to you. And I'm sure there are a lot of other young people out there who are looking for political mentors, and you've offered yourself up. So thank you.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I love teaching, and every field I've had, met a president, I've been in a teaching capacity, although not with CPS, but I love teaching.
All right. All right. What do you hope to see from the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration in Washington?
I hope to see, and I say this from a broad perspective. We now have a Congress that's represented as a majority by Democrats. And I think we really have to focus on how to put our middle class and our working class families in a better position. In other words, we have to look at what is holding us back from growing and what is holding us back being strong. And that's, we are riddled with student loan debt. We're riddled with an inability to find gainful employment. So I hope that this administration, having a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate, can really come forward. And I think we're in a unique position, better than what we have been in the last several years, to make things really happen for working class families.
Well, we know that the Democrats are focused more on working families than the Republican Party has been,
Yes.
at least in the last several decades. So that's encouraging. Are there any particular substantive areas that you hope to see action from at the federal level?
Just providing relief for our families. I think that's very important. And I certainly believe that it's important right now for our president, as well as his those that are on his task force, to really work hard to make sure we can get back to work. Every day we get calls in my office about families struggling to be able to pay rent, to be able to pay a mortgage. Many of them are still looking for jobs, and we're trying to help out as much as possible. So for our immediate future, and I mean within this year, I think we have to work very hard from a federal government standpoint and local to make sure we're getting vaccines rolled out to everyone. And then we can push those other issues, I think, that are very relevant as well.
Well, you're quite right. From the county's perspective, vaccinating people and then trying to plan for economic recovery are the priorities. So that's a challenge at the federal, state, county, city level as well.
We can't afford. I mean, to be honest, we can't afford another shutdown of our state. But if our numbers continue to increase, and then as the summer months get here, I think there's more likelihood that we're going to start seeing even greater numbers, perhaps another surge, because there are going to be outdoor festivals, there are going to be outdoor events where folks are just ready to go out to, because we've been in the house essentially for quite a while. And we're starting to see more people come out now. But it's just a matter of making sure that we can provide on a local level as much PPE as possible.
Right. We know that people have what I call plague fatigue. They're tired wearing their masks and washing their hands and watching their distance. And after a year of this, but if we don't do that, we contribute to the spread of the virus. So that it's a real challenge, especially for those of us who are responsible for healthcare and recovery.
Yeah, and folks want to see their elected leaders as well. And I know many of us, to include myself, haven't been spared. I've lost family members, I've lost friends and relatives. But even when it came in my household, there's this sense of fear. And I still have that to some degree. But folks want to be able to see their elected leaders, to be able to communicate with them. I mean, if you could see my desk now, I think I have 3 different types of hand sanitizer, and I got wipes, and I got disinfectant spray all on my desk.
Right.
Because I want to be able to invite our public into my office and be able to help them out with their needs.
That's one of the most rewarding things about being a member of the city council, being an alderman, is the direct connection you have with your constituents.
I wish I had served with you there.
Well, we just missed each other.
I know.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much, Alderman and committee person, Chris Taliaferro. We're very grateful that you joined us for this episode of The 80.
Thank you, Madam President. I certainly appreciate it.